買い出し注文の追加で。なんだよカズヤ、読んでたなら言えよ。まあな。あれ、でも千鶴さん用事があるって言ってなかったっけ？うわ、きつー。千鶴地元が下田でさ。たまたま予定空いたみたいで、じゃあ合流するみたいな。そうなんすか？まあ。
Hello everybody, welcome back to the podcast. Danny here, and today I'm talking to you about Kanojo Okarishimasu, or Rent a Girlfriend. Rent a Girlfriend is written and drawn by Reiji Miyajima and was published in July of 2017, currently ongoing over there at Weekly Shonen Magazine. I would argue one of the other big manga magazines that rival Shueisha's stuff, brings a lot of hitters. Fairy Tail, Nanatsu no Taizai, Hajime no Ippo, and, other favorites like Yamada-kun. Fire Force was from here, Gameron, and of course, Cage of Eden. Oh boy. At the time of this recording, I'm currently at 148 chapters, so that's all I'm going to talk about right now. So let's go ahead and get into this, man. Rent a Girlfriend. I found this because of the trailer for the anime that's airing now as of this recording, and I was really digging it, so I decided to watch the first few episodes, and then I wondered, is there a manga for this? Sure enough, there was, and that's when I picked it up. And let me tell you, man, been a while since I picked something up and I didn't want to put it down. I went through this in one shot. The last time this happened was not that long ago, actually. If you're listening to these reviews, Cigarette and Cherry, that was the last time where I was like, God, this is so good. And, I'm going to be watching the anime just because since I caught up, I hate that feeling, man, when you catch up to a series that's really good and then you're like, oh no, dude, where's the next chapter? And then you're going to have to wait. But luckily there's the anime, so I'm going to be peeping that as well. I'll get into the anime later. So now let's go ahead, get into the premise of what's really going on over here in Rent a Girlfriend. So it starts off with our boy here, Kazuya. He's feeling good about himself. He moved out of his house. He's a freshman at college. He's got a girlfriend. Life's looking good. But then right when the semester starts is, boom, girlfriend's like, hey, sorry, let's break up. He gets super depressed, doesn't really know what to do. And he's on his phone one day, sees that there's an app that lets you rent a girlfriend for an hour. And since he's emotionally unstable, he decides to go with this. And this is where we meet our other main character here, Chizuru. They go on a date. Everything's pretty cool. He goes home, looks at the reviews, and sees that it's all an act. She's done this many times before. Flustered and pissed off at that, he decides to go on a second date with her and give him a piece of her mind. Causes a little scene at the aquarium where they're at, so she takes him into a room and she breaks character, and we get to see the real side of Chizuru. I like the humor that's in here. While this is all happening, Kazuya gets a phone call, boom, grandma's at the hospital. He rushes over there, but there's still time on the date, so Chizuru follows. All the family's there, and it's like, yo, who's that? And this is prevalent because, as we find out, he didn't introduce his ex-girlfriend to his family, so they didn't know he was dating his ex-girlfriend at the time. So he introduces her as his girlfriend out of just reaction. And of course, since they're still on the clock, she decides to play along. And after that, he apologizes, says, yeah, we'll just break up. And then he gets a life lesson from her. And then boom, that's when we get to chapter 2. And the grandma wants to see her and introduce her to her friends at the hospital. He begs and begs. Chizuru decides, okay, fine, I'll go. But as we find out, since the grandma has friends, Chizuru's like, oh, I gotta go. My grandma's here too. And then, they try to hide. Next thing you know, boom, both grandmas are actually friends with each other. And they're like, isn't this great? Our grandchildren are dating. And so now they have to live a lie where they have to pretend that they are boyfriend and girlfriend. And of course, he's paying her through the app until the grandmas are out of the hospital. And that is the essential premise for Rent a Girlfriend. And, the main reason I decided to pick this up is because mad Nisekoi vibes. That's the first thing I thought of when I saw the trailer. And then when I saw the first episode, I was like, yeah, this is totally like Nisekoi, from Shonen Jump. And I'm a big fan of that series. So I was like, yeah, I'm really digging this. And then, once you read further into it, it's doing its own thing, which I kind of like. And I gotta say, man, another reason why I feel like this is so much like Nisekoi was the art. I had to double check because I couldn't remember the Nisekoi mangaka. And then when I looked up Miyajima's work, I was like, oh, okay, no, this is not the Nisekoi person. But the art is at times very similar, at least, later down the line. In the beginning, you could tell it's like early manga work, right? Like if you go look at like Bleach, Fairy Tail, One Piece, and then you look at it at the halfway points, you could tell like the art changed drastically. It was kind of here too. It was more of a subtle fade in into what the current art is. So that was pretty good too. But yeah, really stellar art. A lot of go-to stuff when it comes to this kind of series, right? It's slice of life, comedy, romance. And also, since I don't really see it tagged on there for some reason, harem is a big point in this series. It's sort of like a harem series. I say pseudo harem, and we'll get into that right now. But yeah, all of this in the art is pretty standard, especially when you bring up harem into it, because there's a lot of generic shots of characters when in a 2-panel frame of them reacting to something that just happened in the chapter. All the good go-to stuff, which is, there's nothing wrong with it, but it's like, oh, okay, I understand what's going on here. They're following the formula, and that's fine. Speaking of the formula, man, when it comes to the writing, I would say the most part, it is going the typical harem route when it comes to the main characters. And just like in Nisekoi, they're always bickering back and forth throughout the majority of the series. And then there's a turning point to where it's like, oh wait, we actually don't hate each other. We think we're great people. And there's even a point where Chizuru tells Kazuya, like, I'm glad I met you. I haven't regretted that yet. What I also like is what I mentioned earlier, pseudo harem. And what I mean by that is, yes, there are other girls in the series that fall for Kazuya. If you watch the anime opening, you'll see they're all there. The reason I think it is nice what Mijiyama is doing, it's not always going to be the same typical stuff you would find in a harem, right? Because normally it goes full circle with all the girls, right? It did in Nisekoi, it does it in To Love Ru. Oh, this week, boom, it's going to be this character. Or here's like a 2-chapter arc with this girl, so that way they could get their shiny moments. Like, oh, this one hasn't been shown up for a while. She has to do something right now with our main character. Here, it's they only show up when they're important. So in the beginning, what was really important was Chizuru, right? Because she's the main love interest, as you would come to figure out, right? Because as with every harem, it's like, oh, who's the first main character? Yeah, she's the one. And then, we have the ex-girlfriend who is still relevant in the series. And I gotta say, man, the writing with her is great for what they were doing. And it's very subtle how they're developing her character too, which I find pretty interesting because she was a big part of the series for a while. But as the story started to shift into more important things, she was not relevant anymore. So what did Miyajima do? Yeah, she's not important anymore, so she's not going to be in the story right now. She's not even mentioned, doesn't show up. Like, Chizuru brought her up once at a point, and I thought, oh yeah, I almost forgot that she's still relevant in the series. So that I really like that. And of course, there's one more important character, and her name is Ruka. She is also the other main heroine, I guess you could say, like the number 2. And it's very interesting how, I wouldn't say interesting, but it's definitely different on how it's usually handled in a harem series, which I think is what the main thing I like for here is, the whole rent-a-girlfriend thing, and then what's going on with Ruka, something you don't see in a typical harem series. She's also relevant, but not all the time, right? Once it starts focusing on other characters, she's sort of takes a back seat. And then there's the other girl, Sumi. She's the last one to show up, so she's not as important into the plot, but she shows up when it matters, and when it matters, it's great. So I really like what Miyajima's doing with the characters, playing with their strengths, understanding when it's important to show up. And that's really the ticks that I have to give it. Another thing I love that this person's doing with the series is with the side characters and the background dialogue. So, typically they go on dates in public, and then you'll have like the little bubbles of the background characters reacting to what our main characters are doing. And some of that stuff is so hilarious, man. I wasn't expecting to crack up at stuff that's not really happening. All the reaction stuff is great. And, Kazuya's friends, every time they come on screen or in the manga, I'm like, oh, here we go, man. Because the way Miyajima writes them, is they're just the boys, right? They're the guys that you hang out with, so they're going to talk like the guys that you hang out with, and they're freshmen in college. So of course things get a little rowdy. Their verbiage is hilarious because it's so true. That's another reason why I like this series, because these characters are actually written realistically. And I think another thing that's important to note is that the fact that they're in college, which I believe is a rare thing to see, because it's, the target demographic is majority of high schoolers, so they would pick high school themes. But since they're in college, they're older, so now they get to say a lot of things in the manga that they wouldn't be able to say in Nisekoi. And I thought that was great. That was a highlight when I watched the first episode. I'm like, oh, we're really asking these questions. We're saying these words, talking about these topics. That's great. And I always have a good time when they show up again. And that's what I really appreciate about this, is it's like, look, we know what you're about, so we're going to go full throttle into here. And I was like, that's amazing, man. And so I'm caught up to the current chapter again, like I said, which is 148. Man, and just the way the pacing works into how important things get and what really kicks the ball off is great. No complaints. It doesn't feel rushed at all. Totally excited to see what is going to happen in the current arc, because honestly, I think this could be a big turning point into the series, right? We either get realizations with characters, or we're going to have one of those dramatic shifts that you always see where characters take a break, and then that's when real feelings get more fleshed out. And then that's the actual time where other characters can hang out with each other. So I'm really looking forward to that. And there was also set up a while back that is going to be very interesting to see, because it's the whole rent-a-girlfriend aspect is a very delicate thing when it comes to the character, because if it's like in Nisekoi, for example, right? The reason that they're dating is because they don't want their gang and Yakuza families to fight each other in the streets all the time. They want them to get along. And then, if it gets found out that they were faking it, I don't think things would go crazy over that. But with the whole rent-a-girlfriend thing, and it's on a smaller scale, like social life and family life, it's way more important for people to not realize that they're fake dating. So with that element in there, and that actually plays a big role when it comes to certain characters that show up, it's really good. My one complaint I would have to say for the series so far is really just with Kazuya. And I really hate it when mangakas do this to their main characters. He's not the most likable guy in the beginning. He's very sad all the time. He's very, emotional. He still acts like a freshman in high school, you could say. Even the way he panics and begs, it's demeaning in a sense. And that's just to show, eventually he's going to grow. And part of how he's acting is still because he's still hurt by the breakup with his ex-girlfriend, because that's how we start the series. And my only complaint with that is it takes so long for Kazuya to actually grow from his experiences during all these situations that he's being involved in. If you watch episode 2 of the anime, there's a big point right there between his ex-girlfriend and Kazuya, and then you could just see how he kind of just shrivels down in the moment. And I'm like, okay, that's an important scene. But if we're going to keep having thoughts like that with Kazuya, and where he's constantly thinking like, why aren't I growing? Everyone around me is growing. And it takes a long time for him to actually step up and actually become a solid main character. And that's my only complaint, is it just takes too long. Like, if it happened, maybe like, I don't even remember what the turning point was, but at least 20% shorter, I think it would have worked out fine. Well, my other complaint, I guess, would have to be involving with the other female character, Ruka, and what's going on with her situation, right? Because when it comes to harems, the main character has a sort of unique relationship with all the characters, how they encountered each other, the way they talk to each other, and the situations that they get involved in. To Love Ru is a perfect example of how Yuko has a unique relationship with all the girls in the series. And here, it's the same thing, but with Ruka, it's such a ticking time bomb case, and I know exactly how it's going to play out once, he has to tell her that, yeah, I'm sorry, but you're not winning at the end of the series. the longer it goes on to where he doesn't say that, it's just gonna be really hard to bounce back with that, to actually have Ruka not hate him forever in the series, right? Because in harems, at the end of the day, once the main guy chooses the main girl, all the side girls kind of accept it, because then they themselves realize it, like, you know what? Yeah, I knew I didn't have a chance, but I gave it all my effort anyways. And that's kind of what's going on here, but it can possibly happen, is what is really in her mind. Like, she could feel like she's the main character, female-wise. So I just hope after this arc we get some more stuff right there. And again, it honestly depends how the current arc ends right now. It's involving with Chizuru's family. And yeah, it was perfect timing when it comes to like high points, right? High critical points that will really test the relationship between these two characters who are slowly, getting to like each other, but also they're not official. And it's like, damn, what am I going to do right now? If only we weren't fake dating, is what is popping up in Kazuya's mind all the time. So again, I cannot wait to read those, and we'll definitely come back for a second part to talk about the ending and the thoughts on there. And before we go, I want to talk about the anime real quick. So like I said earlier, I decided I'm going to be watching the anime as well, just because I want the more content type of deal. When I read the early chapters after I watched the first episode, I thought, oh, okay, this is interesting. They shuffled things around to make it flow better. I think the case, like the first episode's more solid than the first two chapters, you could say, for the manga. But then once I watched the second episode, that's when I was questioning the anime. Now, I don't know if it's because I haven't watched anime in a long time and I don't understand the way the pacing works now, because it's my same problems with God of High School. It's like, it's very fast paced. And when we go into the next scenarios, it's just very abrupt and immediate. That it was like this, like the gimmick in here is that look at all these coincidences with Kazuya and Chizuru, right? The first one is, their grandparents are in the same hospital. And then you find out, actually, they also go to the same university. And then actually, we also find out that they live next to each other in this apartment complex. And it's a very nice pace with a good a good chunk of the chapters in between the reveals, and very good dialogue between them, as if, it's the gag to where, okay, this is the last time this is happening. Here, you can grow from this, right? In the anime, it was like almost back to back immediately. And I didn't like how that played out. I think it should have been more spaced out. They could definitely slow down on the pacing for sure. We're going into episode 3 coming up from the time of this recording, and I saw the preview for it, and it made me think like, okay, well, there's a big moment that happens, and if it happens in episode 3, that's going to be crazy. I think that's an episode 4 thing. Like, it should be a 2-parter episode this coming arc, and if it's one episode, that's going to be very worrying. So that's my only real gripe with the anime, but everything else is it's pretty truthful story wise, and the animation's great. The voice acting's fantastic. I think it's really great stuff. So, definitely check out the anime if you're a fan of the manga, and, just be worried about pacing is what I'm really trying to say here. So what I'm trying to say, guys, is I highly recommend Rent a Girlfriend. Go check it out. It's great to read seinen, shonen series, right? But it's always good to have some sort of manga in your queue that's kind of like, slice of life. Very mellow. We got to sit back and actually enjoy character moments and not have to worry about, how bad is this villain going to be? It's always nice to have that. So very glad I read this, and I'm looking forward to the ending. So without further ado, man, it's going to wrap us up. Thanks, guys, for swinging by. Go ahead and email us, unversepodcast@gmail.com. What do you think of the series so far? We'd love to hear your thoughts. We'll talk about the next episode as always. Give us a follow, Unverse Podcast, anywhere you go on social media. Let you know when the latest episodes drop. So thanks, guys, and we'll catch you on the next episode.
Never gonna tell you how I feel, I ain't tripping. There's any on the tongue, have me on the sun. I got a feeling, baby, it's just a feeling, baby, that I want you and I want you to fucking feel it, baby. I'm a wreck, I'm a mess. I wanna kiss you on your neck and down your chest. I don't think you know the deal. Poppin' trunk, hold the wheel, slow it down, broke a seal. I'm trying to see what clothes conceal. Laying next to you, it does something to me. And I know that you can see right fucking through me. Mango orange juice squirted with the rum. Pussy so wet, she got me surfing with my tongue. Surf's up and all I want is you, so don't even twist my words up. I fuck with you, I like watching movies even if they suck with you. Waking up feeling like Lady Luck hits you. A crush hits you, something like a truck hits you. I was sitting in the studio when you flip my shit like it's Yu-Gi-Oh! Yo, cute face with the blue-green eyes. The first time we hung out, shit, you seem shy. Why feelings gotta slip through cracks? You got me, shit, I get you back. I'm done talking. Got me walking in circles. I wanna feel on that ass. Eat you feet on the dash. I'm a fiend for that shit.